Hey there. Tonight we're venturing somewhere that'll make your kitchen oven feel like a luxury spa. Picture a place where the morning sun smacks you across the face before breakfast, where sand becomes an unwanted seasoning in every meal, and where every gust of wind feels like it blew straight from the devil's tea kettle. Welcome to Egypt, 1941. You're not here for sightseeing. You're here because some desk jockey back home thought stuffing you into a metal coffin with a cannon attached was a brilliant idea. Survival? Let's just say the odds aren't in your favor. Before you get too comfortable, do me a solid. Hit that like button if you're enjoying this. Subscribe if you genuinely dig what I'm doing here. And drop a comment about where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always amazed how far these little history stories travel. Now, dim those lights. Maybe crank up a fan for some ambient noise, and let's settle in for tonight's adventure together. Your boots make a sickening squelch as they hit Alexandria's stone docks. No welcoming committee here, just some red-faced officer bellowing through a clipboard, his hat clinging to his head like it's trying to escape. The harbor stinks of rotting fish, diesel fumes, and mildew-soaked rope, while the heat punches you in the gut the moment you disembark. Your uniform? Completely wrong. Thick wool from Sheffield's finest mills, perfect for drizzly English weather, not this godforsaken inferno. Within minutes, you're sweating from places you didn't know could sweat. You and the other fresh meat get herded like cattle into open-bed trucks. The wooden benches groan under your weight, while the canvas roof provides about as much shade as a lace handkerchief. As the convoy rumbles through the city, you catch glimpses of Arabic storefronts, camels lounging in alleys like they own the place, and locals who glance at you with either amusement or utter indifference. The whole scene feels surreal, half expecting Indiana Jones to come swinging by, but instead you spot a half-naked British private having what appears to be a heated argument with a goat. The journey inland feels endless. Dust clouds swirl around the truck, coating your teeth with a gritty film of regret. The further you travel, the more the world bleaches into shades of beige, sand, stone, sky. Even your fellow soldiers start blending into the monochrome landscape. Eventually, you arrive at a makeshift holding camp, a sad collection of sagging tents and dugouts scattered across the dirt like a child abandoned their toy soldiers mid-battle. They call this acclimatization. Sounds promising, like it might involve air conditioning. Spoiler, it doesn't. Your first night is brutal. You lie on a cot that's mostly rusted springs and bad memories, under a mosquito net that's more hole than protection. Every inch of you itches. Somewhere in the distance, an ungodly howl pierces the night. You tell yourself it's just a jackal, though it could just as easily be the cook's stomach after sampling his own mystery stew. Morning comes before the sun. Your inaugural assignment? Dig a latrine trench. Nothing says, "Welcome to war," like excavating a communal toilet. The sergeant overseeing this glamorous project has three defining features: a whistle permanently lodged in his mouth, a sunburn that could power a small radio, and the general demeanor of someone who hasn't smiled since Queen Victoria was on the throne. As you dig, he alternates between reciting tank specifications and anti-Italian jokes with equal enthusiasm. You meet some of the lads. Private Harris claims he was a race car mechanic before the war, though his thick rural accent suggests he's never been further north than his village pub and couldn't tell a wrench from a teapot. There's Lewis, the radio operator, already chain-smoking despite the desert wind stealing every other drag. And Thompson, the tall, silent type, who stares at the dunes like they owe him money. He doesn't talk much, but you notice his boots remain polished even here. That tells you everything you need to know. After latrine duty, your new least favorite chore, you're marched to orientation, which consists of a chalkboard propped on a folding table, some sad-looking sandbags, and a corporal pointing at grainy tank photos with a stick. This, he smacks the board like a teacher who lost all hope years ago, is a cruiser Mark IV. She's your new home. Treat her like a lady, because she'll screw you over like one. You take notes you'll never read again, while trying not to pass out from the heat. By mid-morning, your shirt's glued to your ribs like a second skin. The corporal moves on to desert survival tips. Rule 1. Always know where your water is. Rule 2. Always lie about how much you have left. That night, The stars look unreal, like someone spilled sugar across black velvet. You lean back against a jerrycan, boots off, trying to spot constellations through the heat haze. In the distance, engines rumble, friend or foe, who knows, accompanied by a harmonica played just off-key enough to make you wonder if it's deliberate sabotage. You drift off wondering what fresh hell you've signed up for. Back home, you just started seeing that girl from the bakery. Her photo's still folded in your breast pocket. You wonder if the sweats blurred her smile by now. Historians still argue whether this initial North Africa deployment properly prepared soldiers for what came next. Some say British command underestimated the psychological toll of the heat, isolation, and mechanical failures. Others argue the sheer absurdity of it all forged a strange resilience. You're too busy scraping sand out of your ears to care. As your first week ends, a desert fox trots through camp one morning, sniffing around the supply tent. Harris tosses it a biscuit. The creature sniffs, turns up its nose, and saunters off. That about sums it up. Even the wildlife thinks your rations are beneath them. But you're still standing. Haven't melted, exploded, or been eaten by scorpions yet. That counts for something, right? You tighten your belt another notch, brush the dust from your sleeves, and wait for orders. Because tomorrow, you're getting assigned your tank. And nothing will ever be the same again. Your first real desert sunrise isn't peaceful, it's accusatory. The kind of light that doesn't gently wake you, but rather slaps you awake with questions about your life choices. No soft golden hues here. Just raw, unfiltered sun crawling over the dunes like it owns the joint. Which, let's be honest, it does. By the time your boots hit the sand, you're already squinting like you stared directly into a searchlight, and your shirt's clinging like plastic wrap. Today's desert boot camp sounds like it might involve obstacle courses and push-ups. In reality, it's mostly the terrain humiliating you. You and the other new recruits get marched beyond the tents and supply trucks to a patch of nothing officially designated as the training field. It's sand, and more sand. The instructor, a leathery veteran called Sergeant Pruitt, greets you with a whistle blast and a booming, "Welcome to the frying pan, gentlemen." First up, equipment orientation. You're introduced to what looks like a scrap heap that got military funding, a jerrycan that leaks more than it holds, a wrench that bends under pressure, a flare gun that nobody trusts, including the flare gun itself. You learn to clean your rifle in high winds, poorly, pitch tents in sand, impossible, and camouflage your tank with netting and dead shrubs that resemble sad Christmas decorations. Mid-morning brings the first heat casualty, Lewis, our chain-smoking radio man. Tried lighting a cigarette while jogging. Went down like a sack of potatoes. Pruitt waves over a medic without breaking stride. Hydrate or hallucinate. He barks, which becomes your new personal motto. You're issued a khaki water bottle with strict instructions to guard it with your life. This is worth more than your rifle, Pruitt says. Lose your gun, you might survive. Lose your water, your vulture food. Ironic, since you haven't seen a cactus in weeks. Just brittle shrubs and rocks that look like they died of boredom. Later comes the desert hazards briefing. Scorpions, sand vipers, unexploded mines, Italian latrines, apparently equally dangerous, depending who's telling the story. One corporal swears he saw a camel bite a man's ear clean off. Another claims sandstorms can strip paint from tanks and skin from bones in one breath. You're skeptical until your first real sandstorm hits that afternoon. It starts as a low hum, like distant aircraft, then builds to a howl. The sky turns yellow, then orange, then an angry brown as visibility drops to zero. You wrap your scarf over your nose, clamp down your goggles, and still feel the sand invading every crevice. Ears, mouth, eyelids, soul. It's nature's angriest exfoliating scrub. Somewhere in the chaos, Harris yells, "I've lost my boot," to which someone shouts back, "Leave it. It belongs to the desert now." When the storm finally passes, you emerge looking like a half-baked loaf of bread. Everything's coated in fine dust. Your canteen tastes like dirt. The trucks are buried up to their axles. One tent's vanished, probably halfway to Libya by now. Pruitt claps his hands. "Excellent training," he grins. Mother Nature's got better aim than the bloody Luftwaffe. That night, your mess tin contains what might generously be called food, gray-boiled beef, potatoes with questionable texture, and something green that may have been a pea in a former life. You eat fast. The flies are aggressive and the cook has a strict no refunds, no complaints policy. Dessert? Lukewarm tea and a biscuit so hard you could repair tank armor with it. The desert doesn't fight fair. It plays psychological warfare. You learn this the hard way during your third week when they finally introduce you to your new best friend, the Cruiser Mark IV. On paper, it sounds sleek and formidable. In reality, more like a stubborn metal rhinoceros with chronic bronchitis. The veterans have given it every nickname from Iron Coffin to the Bloody Thing. But once assigned, she's yours, your shelter, your weapon, your personal sauna, and hopefully not your funeral pyre. Climbing into the tank for the first time assaults your nostrils with a complex bouquet. Aged grease, petrol fumes, dried sweat, machine oil, and something vaguely reminiscent of toast left in a work boot. The interior makes a coffin seem spacious. You bang your head within 30 seconds. Everyone does. It's practically an initiation ritual. Every inch serves a purpose, with 4 of you crammed into this steel sardine can. Harris, your driver, wedges himself into the front like a disgruntled contortionist, peering through narrow slits at a world reduced to postage stamp views. Behind him sits Thompson, your gunner, perched beside the 6-pounder main gun like a brooding owl in a metal armchair. Lewis bounces between loading shells and operating the radio, muttering to himself like a mad scientist. And you? Congratulations, you're the commander, which means you get to shout orders while pretending you know what you're doing. Your throne sits beneath the turret hatch, a thinly padded seat generously decorated with exposed bolts that imprint their pattern on your backside. The commander's periscope offers a fisheye view of the outside world, like watching Armageddon through a letter slot. The binoculars they issue you have one cracked lens. Budget cuts, Lewis deadpants. Probably. Then there's the intercom system. It works. Sometimes. A tangle of wires and throat mics that makes everyone sound like they're shouting through a tin can. During the first test, Harris observes, "This thing makes my mum sound like Churchill," which you choose to take as a compliment. The Cruiser Mark IV was designed for speed, theoretically capable of 25 miles per hour on a good day, on flat ground, with the wind at its back. Reality? She lurches like an arthritic elephant and sounds like she's chewing gravel. The Nuffield Liberty V12 engine drinks fuel like a sailor on shore leave and overheats if you look at it sideways. Your maiden voyage as a crew feels like trying to tame a moody dragon. The engine starts on the 3rd try, considered lucky, the whole chassis shuddering like it's sneezing. Harris coaxes the beast into motion, treads grinding sand into powder. Thompson tests the turret rotation. It creaks ominously to the right before jamming halfway. Lewis tunes the radio and picks up what sounds like Italian opera followed by static. Either enemy transmissions or Cairo's worst radio station. He shrugs. Navigating the figure-8 training course feels like riding a drunk bull. Every turn threatens to tip the tank sideways. You're sweating buckets before reaching halfway, not from exertion, but from the suffocating heat. The interior traps warmth like a blast furnace. No breeze, no escape. Just heat radiating from the engine, bouncing off metal and wrapping around you like a damp electric blanket. You learn quickly not to let your skin touch the interior walls unless you fancy branding yourself. Mid-course, something clangs beneath the treads. That was either a rock or we just offended the desert gods. Harris yells through the intercom. Inspection reveals a bent mudguard. Nothing critical, but enough to throw the turret off balance. You mark it for repairs, again, and learn that fully operational in Army parlance means works if you squint and pray hard enough. Visibility becomes your constant struggle. Tanks might sound invincible, but in the desert, sight lines mean survival. Sand infiltrates everything. Periscopes, rifle barrels, lungs, even your tea. On bad days, visibility drops to 30 yards. When you can see, it's usually a mirage, distant smudges that might be enemy convoys or just rocks shaped like camels. You learn to distrust your eyes and trust your gut instead. At idle, the cruiser doesn't purr, it wheezes. There's a persistent rattle like someone shaking a toolbox, and a maddening tick-tick-tick that never syncs with the engine rhythm. Veterans claim each tank develops its own voice. Yours sounds perpetually nervous. Fitting. Storage space becomes a daily puzzle. There's room for ammo, tools, spare parts, and maybe 2 personal items if you're lucky. Lewis tries smuggling in a tea kettle until it spills boiling water during a sharp turn. Your rations live in a crate marked, "Do not open until desperate," which everyone raids by day 2. Everything tastes like sand anyway. Evening brings firing drills. The 6-pounder kicks like an angry mule, the recoil rattling your teeth. Thompson grins through the noise. "Better than Sunday service," he remarks, loading another shell. Through the periscope, you watch your round crater a rusted-out lorry, the first genuinely satisfying moment all day. Historians still argue whether the cruiser represented innovation or hubris. Its light armor allowed speed, but left crews vulnerable. One direct hit from a German 88mm, and you're toast, literally. Some claim the design was ahead of its time. Others say it was held together by spit, hope, and blind optimism. You try not to dwell on that. After drills, you all perch on the turret, passing around a miraculous tin of peaches someone procured. It tastes like victory. Thompson plays a shaky tune on his harmonica. Harris shares how he once drove a tractor into a pond and called it tactical retreat. Even Lewis cracks a smile. You're filthy, sunburned, and sore, yet feel a flicker of pride. This temperamental metal beast is yours now. Unreliable? Absolutely. Uncomfortable? Brutally so. Does it smell like despair? Undeniably. But it's also your shield, your weapon, your strange nomadic home. You lean back against the warm metal, staring across the endless sand. In the distance, a lone figure approaches camp. Courier or lost soul, you can't tell. Everyone falls silent, watching. When the figure veers away, disappearing into the heat shimmer, no one comments. You just sit with the moment. The war hasn't properly found you yet, but it's out there, waiting. You're beginning to understand that tanks are only half metal. The other half is people, and not necessarily the people you choose. Your crew's a patchwork quilt of mismatched skills, clashing accents, and wildly different coping mechanisms. But inside a British cruiser, you don't need to like each other. You just need to keep each other alive. Take Harris, your driver. Talks like he lost an argument with a sheep once and still holds a grudge. His Yorkshire accent could stop a bullet, but he handles the tank like a stubborn plow horse, which, incidentally, is how he describes it. Gear shifts are suggestions to him. Reverse is a myth, and his boots are perpetually half off because it helps me feel the pedals. You suspect laziness. Then there's Thompson, your gunner, tall, quiet, unnervingly calm. Tell him the sky's falling, and he'd ask if it came with tea. A former schoolteacher from Kent, he naps standing up and delivers sarcasm with deadpan precision. When he speaks, it's usually one of 3 things: firing corrections, dry commentary on your command skills, or ominous observations like, "That ridge doesn't feel right," which invariably means trouble's coming. Lewis completes your oddball quartet, loader and radio operator, twitchy as a caffeinated squirrel. He once rigged a battery-powered fan using radio wires that short-circuited and melted a bean tin. His gear looks chaotic, but he always finds what he needs, except his toothbrush, still missing. As commander, you're supposed to be cool under pressure, sharp-eyed, decisive. Mostly you're guessing and hoping nobody notices. Your job? Spot threats, shout orders, coordinate with other tanks, when the radio isn't broadcasting Italian opera. It's like juggling while standing in a fire. Training shifts from individual drills to crew coordination. You must move as one organism. Turret rotations, target acquisition, reload sequences, all synchronized. The bailout drill becomes grimly familiar. Scramble from hatches in different directions, usually tripping over each other or getting tangled in headsets. Lewis once got halfway out before his trousers snagged on the gear lever. He just sighed and accepted his fate. Meals become communal rituals when the cook remembers to send food. Mostly it's bully beef and biscuits, though one glorious day brings spam that tastes like nostalgia and regret. Thompson carves his initials into the tin like it's a relic. Harris tries trading it for extra water rations. No takers. Downtime means huddling in the tank's meager shade. The metal hull heats like a skillet. You sit on crates or engine blocks, swapping stories while boiling tea on the exhaust manifold. Lewis once claimed he saw a lizard spontaneously combust on the turret. Nobody believed him until Thompson found the charred remains. Maybe it just gave up, he mused. Night brings respite as temperatures plummet. You share cigarettes with Harris under impossible stars. He talks about his family's farm, how cows would gather near hedges when storms approached. They always knew, he says. You wonder if that instinct applies to men in tanks. One evening, a mechanic named Barker inspects your cruiser. Oily-handed and gravel-voiced, he pokes around before declaring, "This girl's got personality, in the worst possible way. The fuel pump's hanging by a thread, the suspension's optimistic at best. When you ask if she'll survive combat, he shrugs. Depends if you drive her or pray to her. You become experts in field repairs." Thompson carries a hammer nicknamed the Persuader. Gentle taps for stubborn parts, harder whacks for broken ones. You start a mental checklist. Things that rattle, annoying, leak, concerning, or spark, terrifying. Historians debate whether the cruiser's unreliability was overstated or inevitable. Some argue it wasn't built for desert extremes, too lightly armored, too temperamental. Others claim that with the right crew and constant tinkering, it became a living thing, needy but capable. Either way, you learn that tank survival depends less on firepower than on keeping the damn thing running long enough to fire at all. Tank life breeds strange intimacy. You learn each man's tells. Harris hums hymns when nervous. Lewis scratches his chin with his pencil when thinking. Thompson pauses exactly 3 seconds before saying something important. You've seen each other at your worst, covered in sweat, soot, oil, occasionally vomit, thanks to high-speed maneuvers on empty stomachs. You've heard sleep mumbles, seen treasured photos tucked in pockets, sweethearts, sisters, dogs, shared water bottles without hesitation. This closeness doesn't come from polite conversation. It comes from shared survival. One quiet morning, you take the cruiser out solo for the first time. No instructors, no safety net. The engine groans as Harris accelerates. The turret rotates smoothly for once. The radio crackles gently. The horizon stays clear. For one perfect moment, everything works. Cresting a dune reveals an endless expanse of sand and scrub, shimmering in the heat. Beautiful in a cruel way, like the desert is daring you to admire it before breaking you. Thompson adjusts his sights. Lewis checks ammo. Harris mutters about oiling the clutch. You watch the horizon. No enemies. No smoke. Just silence and heat. But you know it won't last. This is the calm before everything changes. Movement becomes your new normal. Not theoretical movement, but the real deal. You're part of an actual convoy now, not some training exercise. 40 tanks, supply trucks, and armored cars crawling across the Libyan desert like metallic beetles. Engines roar, heat shimmers in waves, and dust swirls behind you in great, choking clouds. Despite everything, you can't help feeling this is the start of something significant. The training wheels are off. The war isn't newspaper headlines anymore. It's the trail of tread marks stretching behind you, pointing back to a place you can't return to. Convoy life is endless. There's no polite way to say it. The landscape refuses to change, just sand, rocks, and the occasional wreckage of a truck that ran out of luck or water. You pass the skeletal remains of an Italian outpost, crumbling stone walls, bullet holes clustered like insect bites, signs in a language you barely recognize. Thompson peers through the periscope and mutters, "Ghost town," with more finality than necessary. Your cruiser rumbles along mid-column. Harris focuses on not rear-ending the vehicle ahead, which, given the dust clouds, is like following a ghost through fog. You crack the hatch for air, instantly regretting it as the sun blinds you. But the choice is simple: roast with fresh air or suffocate in the cocktail of petrol fumes and boot sweat. You choose roasting. Lewis becomes one with the radio, the static your constant companion. Occasionally bursts of code or orders break through, sometimes music from the wrong frequency. Once, an entire Italian love ballad comes through clear as day. Lewis sings along horribly off-key, knowing none of the words. Meals on the move are chaotic affairs. 10-minute stops, rip open a crate. Hope it's not the dreaded corned beef again, it always is. Someone, probably Harris, dropped the biscuit tin under the seat, and now it reeks of shame and engine oil. Thompson eats like a man with a death sentence. Lewis has perfected spreading jam with a bayonet. You try not to think about sanitation. Aircraft buzz overhead periodically. Each time, you tense, waiting for the whistle of falling bombs. Most pass harmlessly, Allied, hopefully. Hard to tell from inside a steel box with slits for windows. One afternoon, a Stuka dive bombs a fuel truck 10 miles ahead. You don't see it, but feel the distant thump in your chest before black smoke stains the horizon. The convoy halts briefly. Nobody rushes to investigate. The desert will claim the wreckage in its own time. Night brings makeshift camp in a depression between dunes. Tanks form a rough circle, turrets outward, engines cooling. You perch on the cruiser's hull, helmet off, boots untied, trying to scrub grit from your eyelids with a damp sleeve. Harris snores softly nearby. Thompson writes something, probably his will, judging by his dark humor. Lewis wages war against the kettle's stubborn valve, cursing under his breath. A junior officer arrives with map and clipboard. Tomorrow we turn south, he says like announcing dinner plans. Recon reports enemy movement near the escarpment. Might be a listening post. Or nothing. That last part comes too quickly. Historians still argue whether these endless desert convoys were strategic masterstrokes or slow marches into traps. British command believed they could outmaneuver Rommel with speed and surprise. Reality meant sand-choked radiators, broken supply lines, and breakdowns in the worst possible places. But that doesn't stop your tank from rumbling south with the others at dawn. Day 2 worsens. The wind picks up, turning the desert into a sandblaster. Every exposed surface gets polished, skin, metal, even goggles left out too long. The cruiser's interior fills with dust no matter how tightly you seal it. You chew sand with every breath, every word, every miserable bite of rations. Then, near noon, you hit a slope. Not steep, just enough to make the engine complain. Harris grunts, downshifts, and the cruiser lurches upward like an old man climbing stairs. You crest the rise, and there it is. The real Sahara, not training grounds, not Egypt's edges. The endless desert. Miles of nothing. A canvas of beige and gold and silence, so deep it rings. And at the far edge, a faint glint of something man-made. Binoculars up. Could be a bunker. Could be a mirage. Could be German forward observers. You call it in. Command tells you to hold position and await orders. So you wait. For hours. In a baking tank. With flies. And no shade. You pass time in absurd ways. Lewis plays hangman on a map with his bayonet. Thompson recites Psalm 23, then mutters, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of sand." Harris removes his boots and declares his socks a biological hazard. Finally, as the sun dips low, orders come. Your tank and 3 others will investigate the glint under Twilight's cover. Report back. No engagement unless fired upon. Famous last words. You roll out slow, turret sweeping, hatches sealed. Your eyes sting from squinting through the scope. The world turns orange, then bruised purple, shadows stretching like grasping fingers. Every bump jolts your spine. Every gust feels like it carries secrets. As you near, shapes emerge. Angular, low, barrels protruding. You slow, scan, hold your breath. Then Lewis's voice crackles through the intercom. Dummy camp. Look, canvas. Plywood. He's right. Up close, it's all fake. Decoy tanks, fake radio masts, even footprints leading nowhere. Theater. Rommel's favorite trick. A ghost army painted onto the sand. You radio the discovery, turn back toward the convoy. But something feels off. The dummy camp wasn't nothing. It meant someone wanted you looking here while something else happened elsewhere. Sleep comes lightly that night. At dawn, new orders arrive. New heading. Full advance. Combat expected. You wake with actual sand in your mouth, not metaphorically. Your scarf slipped overnight, and now your teeth grind grit with every movement. Still dark, but camp already stirs. Someone kicks a jerrycan, another mutters about rations, a diesel engine coughs to life like an old man with a hangover. Today's the day. You don't know what exactly will happen, but last night's urgent radio chatter left no doubt. The orders were brief. Proceed northwest in formation, recon support joining en route, engagement likely. No pleasantries, no qualifiers, just black ink on crumpled paper. Lewis held it like it might bite. That's the tone of someone who doesn't expect replies, he said before pocketing it grimly. You kit up with practiced ritual. Damp cloth around the neck, scarf over face, goggles adjusted, pistol checked, still jams, helmet secured for illusion of safety. Thompson's painted a tiny white 7 on the turret. You ask why? Lucky number, he says. You raise an eyebrow. 7th tank I've been in, he adds. Others didn't make it. Climbing into the cruiser, the interior already feels like an oven though sunrise is just bleeding across the horizon. Harris sits ready, boots on pedals, eyes scanning through narrow viewports. Lewis fine-tunes the radio, tapping wires like he's interrogating them. Thompson sits calmly by the gun, polishing the breech with what might have been someone's sock. It's almost peaceful, in a twisted way. Engines rev all around. The unit moves as one, a creaky metal beast dragging itself across the earth. Tracks groan. Dust swirls. The lead scout car disappears ahead. You're third in column today. Not the front, not the rear. Just vulnerable enough to matter. Just expendable enough to sacrifice if needed. You don't dwell on that. The sun crests the dunes like a rising coin. Instantly, the temperature spikes. Inside the tank, it's slow roasting. Engine heat from behind, reflected heat from the floor, your own gear trapping every drop of sweat. You crack the hatch slightly, just lets in more dust. No winning. Then it happens. First, static bursts in your headset. Lewis taps the receiver. Something's coming. Hold, wait. Then, contact front, multiple. The voice crackles through the shared channel, tense and clipped. You slam the hatch shut. Harris floors it. The tank lurches forward. Thompson grabs the sights, swinging the turret toward the ridge. You see motion, shadows darting behind rocks, metallic flashes. A puff of smoke. Then another. The tank ahead of you fires. The boom shakes your teeth. Then impact. Not you. Yet, but close. A thump 10 meters right sends grit spraying against your hull. Thompson doesn't flinch. Panzer III, by the rocks. You trust his eyes. He always sees first. You bark orders. Traverse turret, ready he. The gun swings. Lewis loads smoothly. Thompson fires. The recoil kicks like a mule. The shell whistles away. A moment of silence. Then black smoke in the distance. No cheers. Just movement. Because now it's real. You shift into scattered wedge formation, engines revving in staccato bursts. Tanks fan out along the ridgeline. Dust clouds drop visibility. The sky vibrates with engine noise and shouted commands. Gunfire echoes, distant, muffled. Someone calls for medics. Another tank erupts in flames, and you flinch, not at the fire, but at the familiar number painted on its side. Your cruiser rolls into a hollow for cover. The map's useless now. The landscape doesn't match. That ridge wasn't supposed to be there. That outcrop wasn't marked. And that German flanking unit definitely wasn't invited. You give new coordinates. Adjust bearing 5 degrees left. Keep eyes on the rocks. Harris nods silently. Lewis murmurs into the radio. Thompson's already moving the gun. You don't feel brave. You feel sweaty, nauseous, terrified. But you keep going. Historians debate whether these skirmishes helped or hindered the Desert War. Some say they gave crews vital experience. Others believe they exposed British armor's fragility. From your perspective, it's just about staying alive long enough to learn something. The battle is brief but vicious. You take out another panzer, though you're not sure your shot was the kill. Another cruiser loses a track, smokes out. 2 men scramble from the hatch. One limping, both soot-covered. Strange, you don't hear them scream. Just mechanical noise, endless and numbing. Then, abruptly, it ends. The Germans pull back. Trucks flee northward. You hold position, scanning for movement. Nothing. Just dust and wreckage. Gradually, voices return over the radio. Roll call. Casualty counts. Your unit lost 3 tanks. 1 crew didn't make it. You don't ask which. Thompson finally speaks. We lived. Not celebration. Just fact. Harris mutters about changing his socks. Lewis, uncharacteristically quiet, hands you a canteen. You crawl from the hatch, legs stiff, face streaked with sweat and dust. The sun's high now, heat pressing down like a physical weight. You stretch, wincing, surveying the field. Smoke columns mark where tanks stood. Shell casings glitter like teeth in the sand. Yesterday's dummy camp wasn't the trick. This was. They lured you off route with fakes, then hit where they wanted. Classic Rommel. Always thinking ahead. You remember training. The man who holds the high ground controls the story. Today, you didn't hold the high ground, but you're still standing. Maybe that counts. Back at temporary camp, the mood subdued. You clean gear in silence. The cruiser took hits, scored armor, cracked viewing slit, jammed hatch hinge. But she held. Mechanics declare her fit enough, which means she didn't explode. Dinner brings strange appetite, hunger laced with nerves. The meat's tough, bread stale, but you finish every bite. Thompson offers cigarettes around. You decline. Your hand still shakes slightly. Better not to test them. That night, you write a letter. Don't mention the battle. Talk about stars, endless dunes, the tea. Say you're fine. It's only a partial lie. Wind brushes through camp like a whisper. You lie in your bedroll, listening to Lewis's breathing, Harris's snores, the cruiser cooling in the night. You dream of nothing. Just sand and motion and a tank that refuses to stop. Days begin blending together in the desert. Time stops being measured in hours and starts being marked by more practical things. How warm your tea stays before the sand gets in. How long it takes your boots to refill with grit after shaking them out. How many times you can rewrap your scarf before it disintegrates. The sun rises, the sun sets, and in between there's just a haze of engine checks, shell counting, and pretending the smell inside the tank isn't getting progressively worse. The forward operating base, if you can even call this collection of tents and fuel drums a base, is a sprawling mess that seems to rearrange itself when you're not looking. There's a dug-in command post under a sagging canvas roof, 6 maintenance pits scraped into the dirt, and a single latrine trench behind a sandbag wall that flaps in the wind like it's embarrassed to be here. You park your cruiser in a crooked line with others, all sun-bleached and scarred like battle-weary elephants at some bizarre watering hole. Base life develops its own rhythms despite the temporary nature. A bugle call at dawn that no one actually wakes up for. Fuel checks at midday that always reveal someone's been siphoning. Ammo counts at dusk that never quite match the paperwork. You learn the important things quickly, where the best shade is, which jerrycans leak least, which mess tent table doesn't wobble if you sit on the left side. The cook is a wiry Scotsman named Reggie who insists every meal is a proper masterpiece, even when it's clearly just warm beans with extra sand. His tea, however, is perfect, dark, sweet, and hot enough to sterilize surgical tools. One of the few comforts is mail. Once a week, a battered Bedford truck rolls in with a sack of letters from home. You get one from your sister. Neat handwriting, a story about the neighbor's new cat, a reminder to keep your socks dry. You fold it carefully and tuck it into your top pocket. Harris gets 3 letters, all from different women he's apparently not actually dating. Thompson, as usual, gets nothing and says nothing. Lewis receives a parcel that turns out to be socks and weeps with actual tears of joy. News comes in whispers and coffee mugs. Rommel's pushing west. Supplies are thinning. Cairo's nervous. Someone claims they saw a German tank disguised as a water truck. No one knows what to believe anymore. The desert plays tricks. Sun reflects off rocks like mirrors. Sounds carry for miles. Men swear they've seen enemy shapes moving through mirages. Routines form without discussion. Mornings start with oil level checks, filter cleaning, running the engine just long enough to scare off the local birds. Harris takes apart the gearbox for fun and then can't remember how it goes back together. Thompson reads a dog-eared poetry book he swears was looted from an Italian officer. Lewis tests the radio like he's hoping to pick up broadcasts from the future. Afternoons mean weapons drills, gunnery practice, or, more often, waiting for orders that never come. You learn to appreciate shade the way rich men appreciate fine wine. Any scrap of canvas, tarp, or even the shadow of your own tank becomes sacred territory. You've seen fistfights break out over a foot of shade. You've thrown punches yourself. Then there are the briefings. Huddling in a circle with 20 other dust-caked soldiers while some lieutenant points at a map that's mostly blank spaces, gesturing toward rocks and ridges that never seem to exist when you go looking. Axis forces believed operating here, he says, tapping the paper. Probably reconnaissance. Possibly armor. Could be nothing. Classic British command, politely vague. Historians still argue whether these desert bases served any real purpose or were just moving dots on a map to make headquarters in Cairo feel better. Some believe they kept pressure on the Afrika Korps. Others think they were expensive mirages with good tea. You don't know. Your world has shrunk to the tank, the lads, and whatever lies beyond the next dune. The desert does strange things to your head. Some evenings, it's breathtaking. Sunsets painting the dunes in impossible oranges and purples. Silence so deep it rings in your ears. Other times, it's oppressive. The heat doesn't just sit on your skin. It presses into your thoughts, makes you short-tempered, sluggish, forgetful. You argue over stupid things. Whose turn it is to refill canteens, who left a boot in the turret, whether that rock formation looks more like a duck or a poorly drawn hill. One night, a scorpion crawls into Thompson's boot. He doesn't scream when he finds it, just turns the boot upside down, watches the creature fall out, then nods and mutters, "Figures." Next day, he's wearing someone else's boots. No one asks whose. Another morning, Lewis discovers a snake coiled in the engine compartment. Harris, of all people, gently removes it with a shovel and releases it into the scrub. Bad luck to kill things tough enough to survive out here, he says. You're not sure if he's being profound or just weird. Midweek brings rare entertainment. A traveling canteen truck with music and slightly melted chocolate bars. They rig up a projector under a canvas sheet. That night, under the stars, you watch a grainy black and white film about British victory in Tobruk. The audience cheers, then groans when the projector melts the last reel. Lewis says it's a metaphor. You think he's just mad about the ending. Combat never announces itself politely. When it comes, it kicks down the door. Late one afternoon, while Thompson's cleaning the barrel and Harris is half asleep, the radio crackles to life. Lewis straightens, listens, then goes rigid. Movement. 20 clicks out. Could be German armor. Camp erupts. Engines roar to life. Orders fly. You and the crew scramble. In 5 minutes, you're suited up, loaded, and rolling out. You drive toward the coordinates through blinding heat shimmer. The landscape flattens. Rocks give way to fine sand. Vultures circle high above, never a good sign. They know something you don't. Then shapes emerge through the dust. Half-tracks. A column of them, crawling forward in the distance. Not British. You halt. Engines idle. Binoculars come out. Thompson whispers, "They're not expecting us." Command radios in. Observe. Do not engage unless fired upon. Which is exactly what happens 3 minutes later. Tracer fire streaks across the sand. One of the cruisers behind you takes a hit and veers. Another shells the lead half-track. You're already calling bearings. 2 o'clock. Range 400, fire. The cruiser jerks as the shell leaves the barrel. You watch the tracer arc, landing just behind a German tank. It turns slow, deliberate, and returns fire. You brace. The shot hits 10 meters to your right. Close. Too close. Adjust left, you yell. Reload heat. Thompson doesn't flinch. Lewis moves faster than you've ever seen. Another shell in, gun turned, second shot fired. Hit. The enemy tank lurches. Smoke pours from the hatch. The turret stops moving. It doesn't explode, just dies. Like someone unplugged it. One down. Then chaos. Another German tank flanks right. One of your crusaders charges forward, takes a hit to the rear, spins sideways. The crew bails out. 3 men running low, diving behind a ridge. You lose sight of them. You bark more orders. The cruiser moves, backward, then sideways, like a crab evading a predator. You fire again, then again. The gun grows hotter with each shot. Lewis shouts into the headset, trying to reach the Churchills on the far flank. No answer. Either they can't hear or they're already gone. Harris yells, "Crawler on the left." You twist your periscope. He's right. A damaged tank limping through the fray, gun still active. You call for focus fire. The cruiser fires once more. Shell hits the track. The Panzer slides to a stop, then ignites. First a flicker, then full flames, orange and vicious. Thompson says nothing. He's already searching for the next target. Historians debate whether these hit-and-run tactics turned the tide in North Africa. Some say speed and surprise gave British crews an edge despite weaker armor. Others call it luck. Today, you don't care which it was. You're alive. That's enough. The radio confirms. Main force advancing. Enemy pulling back. Hold position and report. No pursuit. You park beside the smoldering wreck of an anti-tank gun, its barrel twisted and blackened. Thompson jumps down to inspect it. Lewis sits on the hatch, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. Harris climbs out and immediately kicks the cruiser's treads. "Loose again," he says. "This tank hates me." You laugh, high and strange. The kind of laugh that's more about survival than humor. Back at base, the tally goes up. 3 tanks damaged. 2 lost. 9 men unaccounted for. Your cruiser needs more work, again. Tracks cracked. Suspension arm bent from recoil stress. The mechanics will scowl, but they'll fix it. They always do. Later, you clean your boots with a petrol-soaked rag, scrubbing harder than necessary. Lewis is silent. Thompson sleeps, sitting up on a crate, boots still on. Harris takes apart the gearbox again, humming under his breath. You stretch out beside the tank, resting your back against its warm metal side. It hums softly, like it's still moving even at rest. You close your eyes. You don't dream. You just drift. The tank creaks like an old man waking from troubled sleep. You know the feeling. You'd slept curled beneath the hull, a thin canvas sheet stretched between the tracks as pathetic windbreak, and still woke feeling like your spine had tried tunneling out through your back. Harris emerges from behind the tank, shirt half-buttoned, hair sticking up like he lost a wrestling match with his pillow. "Breakfast," he announces, holding up a single dented tin of stewed tomatoes. It's unclear whether this is an offering or a threat. No time for breakfast today. Orders arrive with the pale dawn light. Move east, link up with a column near Gazala. Intelligence reports German movement near the old airfield, possible panzer detachment, numbers uncertain. The phrase, "numbers uncertain," makes your jaw tighten. You've learned that when intelligence is vague, it means they're either guessing or don't want to admit how bad things really are. You run through the pre-move checklist anyway. Harris checks the oil, swears creatively, then gives a thumbs up. Lewis performs the radio test, crackly but functional. Thompson tightens a bolt on the recoil guard, muttering about it, feeling off lately. You stow extra ammunition, fill canteens, and slap the cruiser's flank twice. Not for luck, just tradition. The journey is long. Flat desert at first, then increasingly broken terrain. Cracked rock formations, patches of stubborn scrub, the occasional rusted skeleton of an Italian transport. You pass a grave marker fashioned from tank tread and a helmet. No name, just a shadow on the sand. No one speaks. Some silences don't need filling. As you approach the outskirts of Gazala, the smoke thickens. You taste it before seeing it. Bitter, heavy, laced with cordite and burning fuel. Then the sounds register. Not the sharp cracks of close combat, but the deep, rhythmic thud of distant artillery. Like someone pounding a massive drum underwater. Relentless. Methodical. The perimeter is organized chaos. Sandbag walls, trenches, half-built barricades. Men moving with urgent purpose. Infantry duck between cover points. Runners sprint with clutched messages. Medics wave stretchers toward dugout aid stations. Your tank takes position on the southern flank, treads kicking up dust that doesn't even have time to settle before another shell drops somewhere behind you. Orders are simple. Hold this flank and monitor a rocky pass to the southeast. They like pushing armor through there, the captain explains. Fast, quiet, then they're on you before you know it. So you wait. The cruiser crouches low behind piled sandbags and loose rock. Harris kills the engine to minimize heat signature. Thompson loads the gun and becomes one with the sights. Lewis monitors the local frequency, ears straining for any hint of movement. You watch the pass. For hours, artillery booms and echoes in the distance. Flashes of fire light the northern horizon like heat lightning. But your sector? Nothing. Just wind and stone and a sun that refuses to yield. Then, change. A low rumble. Too irregular for thunder, too mechanical for nature. Engines, Thompson observes quietly. Bearing? You ask. 180. Maybe closer. Hard to tell. Binoculars up. Scanning. Nothing at first. Then, movement. A flicker behind a rock outcrop. A glint of something unnatural. Then another. Treads. A hull. A turret. Panzers. You call it in. Enemy armor. Bearing 180. Minimum 2. More behind. Lewis relays the contact. Then everything accelerates. The lead German tank emerges fully, broad, angular, advancing with predatory confidence. Then another. Then a third. A coordinated push through the pass. You shout coordinates. Harris brings the engine roaring to life. Thompson adjusts elevation. Lewis loads. Fire. The cruiser kicks violently. The shell slams into the lead tank side plate. Sparks fly. The turret jerks, but it keeps coming. Thompson's already lining up the second shot. Again. Boom. This shot strikes true. The Panzer halts abruptly, smoke billowing from its vents. The crew doesn't emerge. You can't tell if they're still inside or already gone. Return fire begins. A German shell impacts the rock pile just ahead. Stone shrapnel pelts the cruiser like hail. You duck instinctively, heart hammering. Another Panzer fires, wide. Then again, closer. You respond with steel. Key round. Loaded. 3 o'clock. Range 350. Fire. Thompson's third shot punches into the second tank's flank. It buckles visibly, lists sideways, then erupts. Not a Hollywood fireball, but a sharp, contained explosion. You don't cheer. Just acquire the next target. Then their retaliation finds you. The cruiser jerks violently. Your head smacks the hatch rim. Sparks fly inside the compartment. A wrench clatters off the interior wall. Harris curses colorfully. Track's gone. A glance confirms. Right side tread snapped and twisted, half buried in sand. Immobile. Thompson immediately shifts to covering the flank. You call for support. Lewis tries the radio, just static. Another explosion behind you. Probably the supply truck that brought yesterday's rations. You don't look. You and Harris scramble out. Smoke curls from the engine grill now. Not flames yet, but worrying. Lewis stays inside, relaying positions to other tanks through the local net. You begin laying smoke screens, flares, canisters, anything to buy time. Another German tank crests the rise. Dangerously close. Thompson fires. Direct hit. The Panzer's turret slews sideways violently, trailing smoke. For one suspended moment, the entire battlefield seems to hold its breath. Then the Churchills arrive, 2 of them, fresh and angry. They sweep the pass, driving the remaining Germans back. One enemy tank catches fire and burns an eerie blue for hours afterward. You're pulled back at dusk. The cruiser requires towing. As it's hauled away, you walk beside it, one hand resting on the scarred hull. She saved you again. Now she's wounded. Back at the staging area, you collapse onto a crate of rations. Too exhausted to open them. Just sit, letting the fading light soak into your gritty skin. Face black with soot. Hands shaking. Lips cracked. You don't care. Thompson joins you silently, offering a canteen. You nod your thanks. Lewis appears later, radio set in hand. Still dead, he reports. Then lies back in the sand and starts whistling. It's a long way to Tipperary. Harris, ever resilient, is already arguing with the mechanics about track repairs. You exhale slowly. The battle for Gazala isn't over. But you held the line. For now, the desert teaches you new definitions of exhaustion. Not the pleasant weariness after a day's honest work, but the bone-deep fatigue that comes from constant vigilance, from sleeping with one ear tuned to engine sounds, from the unrelenting heat that saps your strength like a slow leak. You wake before dawn, your body protesting every movement, sand having infiltrated every layer of your clothing despite your best efforts. The canvas above you sags with dew, and for a moment you consider just lying there until the war ends. But routine pulls you up. The same morning rituals, checking your boots for scorpions, shaking out your uniform, splashing exactly 3 palmfuls of tepid water on your face. Thompson watches you with that infuriating calm of his, one eyebrow arched. You look like you lost a fight with a sand dune, he observes. You don't bother denying it. Today's briefing comes early. The officers want to move before the heat becomes unbearable, as if such a thing were possible in this oven. This won't be reconnaissance. This is combat. The real deal. An offensive push against an Axis artillery position dug in near a dry riverbed, codenamed Foxhole Charlie. There's talk of an 88mm emplacement. Your stomach drops at the mention. If there's one thing British tank crews fear more than heat stroke, it's the German 88. Originally designed as anti-aircraft guns, they've been repurposed into the most deadly anti-tank weapons in the theater. Long range, pinpoint accuracy, fast as lightning. One direct hit, and you're lucky if they find enough of your tank to identify. Lewis doesn't react when the briefing mentions the 88s. He just tightens a strap on his headset. Harris mutters, "I always hated Charlies," and climbs into the cruiser without another word. You move out at first light. The dawn is sharp and unforgiving, casting long shadows that play tricks on your eyes. Your unit, 6 tanks strong, rolls in staggered formation, engines purring nervously. The cruiser groans beneath you, but holds steady. Thompson checks and rechecks the gun elevation. Lewis taps at the radio, murmuring, "No opera today, thank Christ." You ride with your head just above the hatch, goggles down, map crumpled between your knees. The terrain shifts as you advance. Flatter, dustier. The dry riverbed lies beyond a low ridge. Intelligence suggests the Germans are dug in there, well camouflaged, possibly with light vehicles and mines. You hate the word possibly. It's the military equivalent of "we have no idea." Then it begins. A sudden plume of smoke erupts from the far ridge. You call it out. A heartbeat later, the flat crack of an 88's report rolls across the sand like thunder. Action stations. You bark, dropping into the turret and slamming the hatch. Harris veers left. Thompson scans for targets. Lewis flips to the main channel. The tank transforms instantly. Hotter, tighter, louder. The second round lands just short of the lead Churchill. The ground erupts in a fountain of sand and metal fragments. You feel the impact through your boots. The cruiser beside you returns fire, its shell screaming across the open ground before disappearing into the ridge. You call out bearings. 3 o'clock, bearing 150. Target dug in nest. The gun swings. Lewis loads. Thompson fires. The whole tank shudders with the recoil. Through your slit, you see the shell strike beside a sandbag position, spraying debris everywhere. Not a direct hit, but close enough to make them nervous. You fire again. This time, it finds its mark. The sandbag position erupts in smoke and fire. Thompson doesn't celebrate, just moves to the next target. The 88 fires again, closer this time. You hear the whine, then feel the shuddering impact. Not a direct hit, but near enough to rattle your teeth. The cruiser groans. Harris shouts that the left rear track feels loose. You tell him to keep moving. You advance in a zigzag pattern, kicking up dust clouds, trying to break their line of sight. The other tanks do the same. One Churchill charges straight ahead, its turret rotating steadily, gun booming. Then the turret stops moving. The 88 found its mark. There's no explosion, just a sickening crunch of metal, a lurch, then silence. The Churchill doesn't burn. It just stops. No one says anything. You know what that means. Your cruiser slides into a depression, momentarily shielded. You catch your breath. Your shirt is soaked through. Your throat tastes like gunpowder and fear. Lewis adjusts the frequency, trying to reach the flanking unit. Thompson stares down the scope like it's a telescope to hell. Harris slaps the dash twice, checking the engine rhythm. It sounds off. Orders come to flank. Circle around the riverbed. Hit them from the south. You and two other cruisers begin the maneuver, engines straining. The sand here is deeper. The treads chew through reluctantly. You bounce in your seat, each jolt sending fresh pain through your already bruised body. A loose jerrycan slams into your knee, but you don't feel it. Not yet. As you crest the ridge, you see them. German gun positions, half buried, camouflaged with netting and painted rocks. A nest of steel teeth. 3 guns, maybe 4, all facing the wrong way. You call it in. Then do what you've been trained to do. You fire. Your first shell hits the nearest emplacement dead center. The gun jerks, topples sideways. The second cruiser follows up, another direct hit. You see movement now, Germans scrambling. One tries to swing a smaller flak gun around. You don't give him the chance. Thompson lines it up. Lewis drops in the round. You give the nod. Boom. The position disappears in a cloud of fire and dust. The third gun attempts to pivot toward you. It's slower, less protected. Your third shot isn't perfect, but it's enough. The crew breaks and runs. Historians will later debate whether these quick strikes turned the tide in North Africa. Some claim speed and surprise gave British crews the edge. Others say it was dumb luck. Right now, you don't care. You're alive. That's victory enough. The radio crackles, main force advancing. Enemy in retreat. Hold position and report. No pursuit. You park beside the smoldering remains of an anti-tank gun, its barrel twisted like a pretzel. Thompson hops down to inspect it. Lewis perches on the hatch, finally lighting that cigarette he's been saving. Harris climbs out and immediately kicks the cruiser's damaged tread. Loose again, he grumbles. This beast has it in for me. You laugh, a high, strange sound that's more about release than humor. Back at base, the tally comes in. 3 tanks damaged, 2 lost, 9 men missing. Your cruiser needs more work. Track cracked, suspension arm bent from recoil stress. The mechanics will grumble, but fix her. They always do. Later, you clean your boots with a petrol-soaked rag, scrubbing harder than necessary. Lewis is uncharacteristically quiet. Thompson sleeps sitting upright on a crate, boots still on. Harris is already arguing with the mechanic about track repairs. You stretch out beside the cruiser, your back against her warm metal flank. She hums softly, like she's still running even at rest. You close your eyes. You don't dream. You just drift. The desert doesn't always attack with bullets. Sometimes it plays chess. You learn this lesson the hard way during what should have been a routine patrol west of Tobruk. The morning sun hangs low enough that squinting doesn't immediately blind you, and the orders seem straightforward. Advance with caution. Clear the southern ridge. Report anything unusual. That last word, unusual, makes your stomach twist like a wrung-out rag. Your 6-tank formation moves in staggered intervals, engines humming with nervous energy. Harris drives with quiet focus, his hands loose on the controls. Thompson leans against the turret ring, his eyes glued to the sights like a hawk scanning for prey. Lewis keeps one hand on the radio dial and the other wrapped around a lukewarm mug of tea he claims provides mental clarity. You perch halfway out of the hatch, the map flapping against your knees in the hot wind. The silence stretches too long, too clean. Then you spot it, an odd shape on the horizon. At first glance, it looks like a Panzer III sitting askew. Too still, too perfect. You signal the column to halt. Reach for the binoculars. And that's when realization dawns. The tank is painted in broad, obvious strokes. The turret's just canvas stretched over wood. The treads don't leave proper tracks. It's a decoy, and it's bait. Thompson murmurs, "Oh, those crafty bastards," with something resembling respect. Your spine stiffens. Scan the flanks. You order, dropping fully into the turret. Lewis switches frequencies faster than a card shark dealing aces. Harris throws the gear into reverse, careful not to kick up a dust cloud. Then, pop, pop, pop. 3 sharp reports from the ridge. Your tank shudders as the first shell lands just short, sand spraying like a geyser. You slam the hatch shut, shouting flank trap. Pull back. The second shell whistles past and hits the Crusader 2 positions to your right. It doesn't explode, just stops dead, like a toy smacked by a giant's hand. Third shell lands behind you, close enough to rattle your teeth. Harris guns it. The cruiser groans in protest, but obeys, lurching into motion. You veer left into a shallow wadi, grinding over rocks and scrub. You're shouting bearings. Thompson's already rotating the turret. Lewis is calling for artillery support. Everything moves both too fast and not fast enough. Another impact, not on you this time. A Churchill takes a direct hit to its flank. Fire blossoms from the engine compartment like an obscene flower. 2 crewmen bail outrunning. A third crawls. The trap is sprung. Rommel's signature move. Lure them in with decoys, let them commit, then strike from concealed positions with long-range guns. Not about brute strength, about perfect timing. You skirt the ridge, swinging wide. One of the other tanks is already engaging, firing controlled bursts. You signal Lewis to patch into their channel. The radio erupts in chaos. Overwatch, smoke cover, fall back, all bleeding together. You call for a shot. Thompson lines it up smoothly. Lewis loads. Boom. The recoil sends a loose wrench clattering across the floor. The shell streaks through the air. You lose sight of it, but seconds later a dark smudge appears where the gun emplacement used to be. One down. Allied artillery answers. Shells crashing into the ridge with earth-shaking force. Dirt and debris arc skyward. The German fire slackens. Just for a moment. Just enough. You take the ridge. It's reckless. It's your only move. The cruiser lurches upward, engine growling in protest. Thompson spots another battery. This one halfway packed, crew scrambling. You fire before they get the tarp off their second gun. Direct hit. The gunners scatter like roaches when the light comes on. Lewis whoops over the intercom. You allow yourself one deep breath. Then something whistles overhead. Not artillery, not tank fire. Smaller. A mortar. It lands just behind you. The explosion rocks the cruiser sideways. Harris swears with creative fervor. Lewis's radio cuts out with a final squeal of protest. Your mouth fills with the taste of grit. Your left ear ringing like a church bell. Status, you bellow. Still breathing. Harris calls back. Turret operational. Thompson reports, already re-aiming. Radio's toast, Lewis says calmly. But I can shout real loud if that helps. You regroup in the wadi shelter. The remaining tanks form up around you, what's left of them. One Crusader smokes ominously. A Churchill lists to one side with a broken suspension. But you're still in the fight. Barely. Back at base, the debrief is brutally concise. Enemy deception tactics increasing. Exercise extreme caution with all contacts. Military speak for, trust nothing your eyes show you. You strip the cruiser down for repairs. Harris finds a warped bracket on the engine casing that somehow held. Thompson cleans the barrel with ritual care. Lewis replaces 3 blown fuses before kicking the radio panel when it still refuses to cooperate. You slump onto a crate, wiping your face with a sleeve that's more grease than fabric now. The heat presses down like a physical weight. Your mouth tastes like a spent cartridge, but water seems impossible while your stomach still churns with adrenaline. That fake tank haunts you. How perfectly it sat there. How close you came to falling for the ruse. Historians sometimes speak of Rommel's ghost divisions, entire formations that existed only on paper but made entire brigades hesitate. You understand now. This war isn't just about firepower. It's about getting inside your opponent's head. And today it worked. Almost. That night, the 4 of you sit in a loose circle outside the cruiser, backs against her battered hull. The desert wind picks up, whispering across the dunes. Lewis breaks the silence first. You know, he says, examining a loose thread on his sleeve. I've decided the desert is a pathological liar. You glance over. How so? Shows you things that aren't there. Makes you chase ghosts. Offers shade just long enough to get your hopes up. Then roasts your bollocks off. He spits into the sand. Liar. Harris nods sagely. At least it doesn't talk back. Thompson, half asleep against the treads, murmurs, "That's because it already knows what you're gonna say." You smile, not quite a laugh, but close enough. Then you stand, stretching until your back pops, and pat the cruiser's scarred flank. She's collected new scratches today, new dents, new burns along the vents. But she held. You survived another round. Tomorrow, the game begins anew. They call Tobruk a fortress. They say it's a symbol, a thorn in Rommel's side, the linchpin holding the North African campaign together. You say it's a furnace with walls. Orders come at sunrise. What remains of your unit is rolling east toward Tobruk to reinforce the defensive perimeter. Heavy shelling overnight. The briefing officer says, his face drawn tight. They'll need armor to hold the line, keep pressure off the infantry. The map he gestures at looks like it's been erased and redrawn so many times the paper's wearing thin. You nod. You've stopped asking questions. Just check your kit and climb into the cruiser like it's Sunday church. The road to Tobruk is littered with war's debris. Burned out trucks, twisted tank hulls, shattered crates, the occasional boot left behind. No one comments. The silence in the tank says enough. You all just sit with it. As you approach the outskirts, the smoke thickens. You taste it before seeing it. Bitter, heavy, laced with cordite and scorched metal. Then the sounds register, not the sharp cracks of close combat, but the deep, rhythmic thump of artillery in the distance. Like some giant pounding a drum underwater. Relentless. The perimeter is organized chaos. Sandbag walls, trenches, half-built barricades swarming with movement. Infantry duck between cover points. Runners sprint with messages clutched in sweaty fists. Medics wave stretchers toward dugout aid stations. Your tank takes position on the southern line, treads kicking up dust that doesn't even have time to settle before another shell lands somewhere behind you. Your orders are simple. Hold this flank and watch a rocky pass to the southeast. They like pushing armor through there, the captain explains. Fast, quiet, then they're on you before you know it. So you wait. The cruiser crouches low behind piled sandbags and loose rock. Harris kills the engine to minimize your heat signature. Thompson loads the gun and becomes one with the sights. Lewis monitors the local frequency, ears straining for any hint of movement. You watch the pass. For hours, artillery booms and echoes in the distance. Flashes of fire light the northern horizon like heat lightning. But your sector? Nothing. Just wind and stone and the unrelenting sun. Then, change. A low rumble. Too irregular for thunder, too mechanical for nature. Engines, Thompson observes quietly. Bearing? You ask. 180. Maybe closer. Hard to tell. Binoculars up. Scanning. Nothing at first. Then, movement. A flicker behind rocks. A glint of something unnatural. Then another. Treads. A hull. A turret. Panzers. You call it in. Enemy armor. Bearing 180. Minimum 2. More behind. Lewis relays the contact. Then everything accelerates. The lead German tank emerges fully, broad, angular, advancing with cold confidence. Then another. Then a third. A coordinated push through the pass. You shout coordinates. Harris brings the engine roaring to life. Thompson adjusts elevation. Lewis loads. Fire. The cruiser kicks violently. The shell slams into the lead tank's side. Sparks fly. The turret jerks, but it keeps coming. Thompson's already lining up the second shot. Again. Boom. This shot strikes true. The Panzer halts abruptly, smoke pouring from its vents. The crew doesn't emerge. You can't tell if they're still inside or already gone. Return fire begins. A German shell impacts the rock pile just ahead. Stone shrapnel pelts the cruiser like hail. You duck instinctively, heart hammering. Another Panzer fires, wide. Then again, closer. You respond with steel. He round. Loaded. 3 o'clock. Range 350. Fire. Thompson's third shot punches into the second tank's flank. It buckles visibly, lists sideways, then erupts. Not a Hollywood fireball, but a sharp, contained explosion. You don't cheer. Just acquire the next target. Then their retaliation finds you. The cruiser jerks violently. Your head smacks the hatch rim. Sparks fly inside the compartment. A wrench clatters off the interior wall. Harris curses colorfully. Track's gone. A glance confirms. Right side tread snapped and twisted, half buried in sand. Immobile, Thompson immediately shifts to covering the flank. You call for support. Lewis tries the radio, just static. Another explosion behind you. Probably the supply truck that brought yesterday's rations. You don't look. You and Harris scramble out. Smoke curls from the engine grill now. Not flames yet, but worrying. Lewis stays inside, relaying positions to other tanks through the local net. You begin laying smoke screens, flares, canisters, anything to buy time. Another German tank crests the rise. Dangerously close. Thompson fires. Direct hit. The Panzer's turret slews sideways violently, trailing smoke. For one suspended moment, the entire battlefield seems to hold its breath. Then the Churchills arrive, two of them, fresh and angry. They sweep the pass, driving the remaining Germans back. One enemy tank catches fire and burns an eerie blue for hours afterward. You're pulled back at dusk. The cruiser requires towing. As it's hauled away, you walk beside it, one hand resting on the scarred hull. She saved you again. Now she's wounded. Back at the staging area, you collapse onto a crate of rations. Too exhausted to open them. Just sit, letting the fading light soak into your gritty skin. Face black with soot. Hands shaking. Lips cracked. You don't care. Thompson joins you silently, offering a canteen. You nod your thanks. Lewis appears later, radio set in hand. Still dead, he reports. Then lies back in the sand and starts whistling. It's a long way to Tipperary. Harris, ever resilient, is already arguing with the mechanics about track repairs. You exhale slowly. The battle for Tobruk isn't over. But you held the line. For now. The track snaps again. You don't even curse anymore. What's the point? Just slide down from the turret with a sigh and start pulling tools from beneath the tarp. Thompson's already kneeling by the broken tread, inspecting the damage like a jeweler examining a flawed diamond. Harris leans against the hull, arms crossed, shaking his head. Lewis climbs out last, wiping his grease-stained forehead before muttering. She's doing this on purpose now. This makes the 5th time the cruiser's right track has thrown in 3 weeks. The desert is wearing her down, and you along with it. Nothing prepares you for the special hell of track repair in open desert. The sand invades everything. The grease, the bolt threads, your eyes and mouth. Sweat turns your shirt into a second skin. Gloves stick to your hands. Wrenches slip constantly, all while the silence stretches around you like a held breath, waiting to break. But you've gotten good at it. The 4 of you move like clockwork now. Harris jacks up the chassis. Thompson loosens the locking nuts. Lewis lines up the spare link. You coordinate. Not because you're in charge, but because someone has to say what comes next when hands are too sore to think straight. You finish just before noon. No cheers. No comments. Just climb back into the tank like it's Tuesday. Today's mission is simple escort duty. Protect a fuel convoy moving up from El Adam. Your job, prevent attacks from motorcycle scouts, half-tracks, maybe the occasional Italian light tank trying to punch above its weight class. It starts quietly enough. You trail alongside a line of trucks stacked with fuel drums and canvas-covered supplies. The drivers are jumpy, eyes darting across the sand. Can't blame them. One well-placed bullet turns those trucks into fireworks. Then dust plumes appear. 1, then 3, then the high-pitched whine of engines. German motorcycles. They're fast, too fast for your turret to track at full speed. They weave between dunes, kicking up sand, machine guns mounted on sidecars chattering at the convoy. More harassment than real threat, but harassment in the desert is like termites in wood. Leave it unchecked, and everything collapses. You swing the cruiser into position, giving the main gun a clear shot. Harris reverses smoothly, angling to protect your vulnerable side armor. Thompson lines up the lead bike, fires. The shell impacts a dune just ahead, showering the bikes with sand. One flips spectacularly, rider flying. Doesn't get up. Lewis switches to the coaxial machine gun. Short, controlled bursts. The bikes scatter. One veers too close to a fuel truck. Thompson's next shot punches a crater beside it. sending the bike skidding. It doesn't recover. 5 minutes later, it's over. The remaining bikes retreat, leaving 2 behind. The drivers cheer. You don't. Because while they celebrate, you're watching the ridge. And that's when you see it. A glint. Then another. Something big. You call it in. Unknown vehicle. 2 clicks. East Ridge. Lewis tunes the radio. Static. Then, confirmed. Enemy armor. Support coming. Hold position. You hate those words. Hold position. Out here, that's just a polite way to say wait your turn to die. The tanks appeared 20 minutes later. 3 Panzer IIIs, 1 towing a flak gun. Your convoy has nothing but a few boys' anti-tank rifles and prayers. So the cruiser takes point. Harris adjusts the throttle. Thompson checks range. Lewis starts shouting coordinates to the truck drivers. You're not protecting tanks now. You're guarding matches soaked in gasoline. They fire first. The shot lands short, kicking up sand. Then another, closer. You respond. The cruiser barks, recoil punching your spine. Thompson adjusts. The second shot hits the flak gun trailer. It cartwheels through the air in a mess of metal. 1 Panzer breaks off, heading for the convoy. Thompson tracks it. Got him, he says. Then, click. Jam, Lewis mutters. You scramble. Pull the release. Try again. Still jammed. The Panzer lines up a shot on the last fuel truck. You're screaming. Clear it. Thompson slams the breech with his palm. Something gives. Lewis rams in a new round. Fire. Boom. Direct hit. The Panzer's track flies off. The tank slews sideways and stops. You reload. Swing to the last target. Too late. It fires first. You see the shell coming. Impact to your left. Fire and smoke erupting. Your ears ring with pressure. The cruiser lurches. Heat washes over you. Something bites into your leg. Shrapnel or metal, you can't tell. Harris is yelling. Lewis is yelling. Thompson fires again. The last Panzer stops moving. It's over. You sit dazed for a moment. Then Harris pulls you out. You're bleeding, he says. Not bad, you lie? Lewis is back on the radio. Thompson remains calmly behind the gun, like he's lining up a pool shot. The convoy moves on. 1 fuel truck is gone, burned to a skeleton. But the rest? Still rolling. You save them. Later, under the stars, Lewis tosses you a bandage roll. You got lucky, he says. I know. Thompson offers a tin of rations. Harris refills your canteen. You sit against the cruiser. Another scar. Another memory. She still runs. And so do you. The morning arrives too quietly. Not the peaceful quiet of a village waking, but the heavy, oppressive kind that wraps around you like a damp wool blanket. No engines. No distant shelling. Not even wind whistling across the dunes. Just stillness. You emerge from the tank, boots crunching in the sand that's somehow gotten into everything again. The air smells burnt, metallic. Lewis fiddles with the radio, tapping its casing like he's trying to wake it up. Harris sits on an overturned crate, cradling his mug like it holds answers. Thompson hasn't spoken since waking. The cruiser stands battered but unbroken. The weld along her side hull is warped now. A spare track link bolts on at an odd angle. The main gun's recoil has developed a quirk that rattles your teeth with every shot. She's not pretty, but she moves. And in the desert, that's enough. An officer moves through camp with clipboard in hand, calling out assignments. You barely catch yours. Sector sweep. 40 clicks east. Clear debris. Check for survivors. Map enemy movement. Military speak for clean up the mess. You roll out with 2 other tanks, a Churchill and a Crusader. A patchwork unit thrown together after yesterday's chaos. No air cover. Just grit, rust, and frayed nerves. The landscape changes as you advance. The sand thins. Rock clusters appear like skeletal hands pushing through the earth. Broken wire fences dot ridge lines like forgotten spiderwebs. Wreckage litters the ground in morbid clusters. Twisted track links, burnt tires, the occasional mess kit shining dully in the sun. Thompson breaks the silence. Looks like a battlefield that forgot to bury itself. No one argues. After 2 hours, you find them. Not a full unit, just scattered remnants. 2 German half-tracks, 1 flipped. A Panzer IV burnt black, its turret half off. And something else, a British supply truck, its tarp shredded, Empty crates scattered like discarded matchsticks. You dismount. So does Thompson. The others hang back. The cab is empty. No blood. No papers. Just a single canteen resting on the passenger seat, half full. Your chest tightens. Lewis peers inside. Ambush, then abandoned maybe. Or walked off into the desert, Harris suggests. Looking for help. No one finds help out here, Thompson murmurs. The map says mark it and move on. So you do, but your thoughts linger. As you push further, the heat intensifies. Your eyes sting from sweat. Dehydration creeps in, first subtle, then overwhelming. You ration sips. Your tongue sticks to your teeth. Thompson starts humming tunelessly. Lewis stops talking altogether. Harris removes his boots again, muttering about staying grounded. Around midday, another wreck site. Only this time, there's movement. A British soldier lies face down, half buried in sand. No helmet. Uniform scorched. A flare gun glints near his outstretched hand. You're at his side in seconds, rolling him over gently. He's breathing, shallow, labored, eyes fluttering. You call for medics. Lewis radios for evacuation. He doesn't speak. Doesn't need to. His condition says enough. The medics arrive in a cloud of dust 30 minutes later. You help load him onto a stretcher. One medic mutters, "Third one this week." Third one. Out of how many? You sit on the hull afterward, wiping your face with a rag that's more sand than fabric. The heat makes the horizon ripple. For a moment, it looks like it's floating. You blink. It stays that way. You move on. The return trip is quiet. The cruiser grumbles and shudders. You've learned to distinguish her groans, the normal complaints from the something's about to break whines. The fan belt sounds off. Harris insists he can fix it with tape and hope. Camp appears as a smudge on the horizon. Tents, vehicles, a signal mast leaning like a drunkard. You pull in, park the cruiser, shut her down. She wheezes as she cools. So do you. Dinner is reheated tin stew. You eat in silence. Even Lewis doesn't complain about the peas. That night, you sit with your back against the tank, staring at the stars. No laughter, no harmonica, just quiet. Then Thompson speaks. When this is over, he doesn't finish. Lewis picks up the thread. I'll open a radio shop, fix people's sets, maybe chat up strangers in Cairo for fun. Harris chuckles. I'm growing tomatoes. Just because. You think. Then, I want to sleep in a real bed, where the ground doesn't try to swallow me whole. They nod. That's dream enough. Historians still debate the Desert War's true cost, not just in lives, but in minds eroded by heat, days lost to the unrelenting sun, nights haunted by silence. Some say it forged a new kind of soldier. Others say it broke the old ones. You don't know what kind of man you are now, just that you're not who climbed into this tank months ago. The wind picks up. You lie down beside the cruiser, helmet pillowed on a jerrycan, the stars sharp above. And for the first time in days, you close your eyes and don't dream of war. Just water. And home. You don't talk about the ones who don't come back. There's no rule about it. No line in any manual. It just happens. The desert swallows a man. And for a day you move slower. Polish your rifle a little longer. Keep conversations just light enough to float above the silence. Then the sun rises again. The world doesn't stop, and you're expected to drive on like nothing's changed. It happens this morning. Patrol Unit Delta was due back last night. 3 tanks, 2 supply trucks, 16 men. They never arrived. By dawn, the whispers start. Maybe they took a wrong turn. Maybe they're sheltering from a storm. Maybe they're still out there, waiting. Maybe. Your crew gets assigned to search the eastern basin, a flat, featureless stretch scarred by old trenches and abandoned Italian fortifications. You've patrolled here before. Never liked it. Always felt like the rocks were watching you. Harris climbs into the cruiser without a word. Thompson does a full inventory of the shell racks. Lewis rewires the radio for the 3rd time this week, just to keep his hands busy. You go through the motions. Routine is armor now. A way to move through days without sinking into the wrong kind of thoughts. The sand feels different under the treads today. Not softer, just weary, like it's tired of holding secrets. After an hour, you find them. Not all of them. Just one tank, half buried in a shallow crater. The turret's blown open. No markings left. Just scorched metal and a single bent shovel sticking up from the sand like a grave marker. Lewis cuts the engine. Silence. You dismount slowly. Your boots crunch across broken glass and shell casings. The interior is blackened. Whatever happened, it was quick. No personal effects. No dog tags. Just shadows burned into steel. Thompson kneels beside the wreck, places a gloved hand on the hull. Says nothing, but you know what he's thinking. Could have been us. You mark the coordinates. Radio them in. Command acknowledges with a toneless Roger. No follow-up questions. No emotion. Just another check mark in the ledger of missing men. You turn back toward the ridgeline without speaking. Halfway home, Harris breaks the silence. You ever think about what happens after? After what? Lewis asks. After all this. The war. If we make it through. It's not a new question, but today it lands differently. Thompson answers first. I'll go home. Not because I want to. Just won't know what else to do. Lewis shrugs. That radio shop I keep mentioning. Even if nobody comes. Just want something with my name on the door. Harris laughs once. You'll name it after the tank, won't you? Only if she's in one piece, Lewis says. Otherwise I'll name it after you. You don't answer right away. Then, I think I'll go quiet. The way people do when they've seen too much. But I'll still laugh at stupid jokes. And probably flinch when doors slam. The conversation dies there. The sun climbs higher. The air gets heavier. The road back stretches longer than usual. At camp, a mail truck arrives, dusty and dented but a welcome sight. A rare good thing in a week of bad. You get a letter. Your sister again. She writes about the new neighbor, a widow who bakes pies and asks too many questions. About rationing, and how people are learning to make stew from things they used to throw away. She asks how you are. Says she's proud. Underlines love twice. You fold it carefully. Tuck it into your breast pocket. Thompson gets nothing. Lewis gets a parcel, socks, and a tin of boiled sweets. Harris gets 3 letters, all in different handwriting. You still don't ask. Dinner is a strange affair. The cook found a crate of onions, so everything tastes vaguely of them. Onion stew, onion biscuits, even onion tea, which is somehow worse than it sounds. Nobody complains. Not really. You sit with your crew by the tank as the sun dips below the horizon. The cruiser's shadow stretches long across the sand. Thompson sharpens his bayonet, not because it needs it, but because he needs something to do with his hands. Harris leans against the treads, smoking a cigarette rolled from 3 used filters. Lewis draws in the dirt with a stick, a rough sketch of a building labeled Lewis and Company. Radio Emporium. No one talks much. The comfortable kind of silence that comes when there's nothing new to say, but you still want to be near each other. You lie back, stare at the stars. They're especially clear tonight, sharp pinpricks against black velvet. They feel closer than usual, like if you stood on your toes you might brush them with your fingertips. Historians don't write about moments like this. They write about strategy, about victories, about loss. But not this. Not 4 exhausted men sitting in the quiet, bruised by the day, held together by habit and stubbornness, staring at the stars because looking at each other hurts too much. Tomorrow there will be new orders, new maps, new coordinates. Tomorrow another track might snap. Another engine might fail. Another tank might vanish behind a ridge and never return. But tonight, you breathe. You exist. You're not gone yet. And in the desert, that's enough. You wake to engines growling in the dark. Not alarms. Not shouts. Just the low rumble of machinery warming up before dawn. A chorus of tired tanks coming to life in the distance. Familiar engines. British. Your first thought, they're moving out early. Your second, this is the last push. Sitting up slowly, sand cascading off your back, you realize you'd slept beneath the cruiser again, curled under the tarp stretched between her treads. The stars still shine overhead, paling as the eastern horizon bleeds silver. You pull on your boots. Shaking out scorpions has become second nature, and take stock. Thompson's already packing gear with quiet efficiency. Lewis tightens straps on the radio pack like he's preparing to leave in 10 minutes. Harris sips tea from a mug that used to be part of a mess kit. No one speaks. No need. The orders came last night. Not a skirmish, not patrol. A full offensive north. They're calling it the beginning of the endgame. You've heard that before. But this time, the air feels different. Not the wind, something heavier. Intent. The quiet before the tide turns. Climbing into the cruiser feels like the 100th time, yet somehow new. You take your position. Adjust the headset. Run through checks. The shell racks are full. The engine sputters, then catches. The intercom squeals briefly before settling. You're ready. The formation rolls out as dawn breaks. Dust plumes rise behind the lead tank. Dozens of vehicles fan across the sand, a moving fortress. You ride near the center. Can't see the end of the column in either direction. It feels like something's about to give. First contact comes after noon. Distant at first, pops on the wind, then smoke plumes. You hear them before seeing anything. Thompson tenses at the sights. Harris clicks his tongue. Lewis taps the radio housing twice, a superstition now. Then the sky fractures. German shells scream in from the ridge. The lead crusader disappears in fire and sand. You can't see the turret anymore, just flames. You keep moving. Your own shell leaves the barrel with a thunderclap. Thompson doesn't flinch. Lewis loads another. Harris adjusts angle. First shot falls short. Second doesn't. You hit a half-track. It flips like a child's toy, rolling until it crashes into rocks. You traverse the turret. Another target. Panzer IV. Bigger. Deadlier. You fire. It fires. Both miss. You reload faster. Don't miss again. The recoil rattles your teeth. The turret smokes. The shell strikes center mass. It stops moving. Then, whistle. A shell impacts near your left rear tread. Harris curses. You lose traction, spin 90 degrees, end up sideways behind a dune. Thompson fires blind. Lewis shouts something drowned by static. The headset's fried. Another impact. This one lands just ahead. The cruiser rocks violently. Your head strikes the hatch rim. Then, silence. Not around you. Inside you. Your ears ring. The sand presses in. For a heartbeat, you think this might be it. But you open your eyes. Still here. Everything hurts. But still here. You scramble out, dragging Lewis by his webbing. His headset wire tangled around his arm. Thompson emerges next. Harris last, clutching his side. The cruiser smokes gently. A hiss from the engine block. She's done. But she held. You take cover behind her hull. Watch the battle unfold. Churchill's advancing like steel giants. Smoke everywhere. The sun hangs high now. Bright. Unforgiving. Medics drag men from wrecks. Infantry overrun a German position. A Valentine fires until it can, then burns and collapses in on itself. You see survival and loss. You see we're stripped of maps and medals. Just motion, noise, breath. Eventually, it ends. They say you won. The Germans retreat. What's left of them? You hold the field. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like a draw with the desert. Like the land let you live one more day. You limp back to camp. A recovery team tows what remains of the cruiser. A mechanic surveys the damage. Busted tread, scored hull, charred markings. Whistles low. She did her part, he says. You nod. Your chest tightens. Later, after the medics clear you, after Thompson cleans the sidearm you forgot you were carrying, after you've eaten whatever passed for dinner, you all sit together. This time in silence. A thick, comfortable silence. Lewis speaks first. We should name her. You look up. He's serious. Harris grunts. Bit late for that, isn't it? No, Lewis insists. Not too late. You glance at Thompson. He nods. Think. Then, Grace. They all nod. No laughter. It fits. That night, you sleep under a forgotten blanket that smells of engine grease and onion stew. That smells like life out here. And your dream. Not quite a dream. Just a long, quiet drive. On a cooler day, the tank humming softly. Everything in place. No one talking. But no one gone. Just moving. Just forward. The desert fades around you now. Not suddenly, but gradually, like sand slipping through an hourglass. Let it go. Let the rumble of engines fade from your ears. Let the weight of the heat lift from your shoulders. Let the dust, the grit, the sun-scorched hours dissolve into memory. You've made it through. You're here. The battle's behind you now. The gear is stowed. The guns are cold. The cruiser, Grace, rests at last as you do. Maybe they'll rebuild her. Maybe she'll remain where she stopped, becoming one with the desert. Either way, she served her purpose. And so did you. No one emerges from this unchanged. The desert reshapes men, not through violence alone, but through relentless exposure, through repetition, through the daily choice to survive. You've seen things you'll never describe, heard sounds that will haunt quiet moments, carried water like it was liquid gold, and marched further than you thought possible. You've waited in silence and fired in chaos, slept in full gear, eaten from tins, learned to recognize trouble before it speaks its name. But now it's time to rest. So breathe. Let your muscles uncoil. Let your jaw relax. Unclench your hands. You've been holding them tight without realizing. You're safe for now. Warm for now. And in the quiet beyond the dunes, nothing moves. You're not alone. Even here, in this stillness, your crew remains close. They're breathing. Their laughter when it comes. Their memories. And yours. Close your eyes. Let the dust settle. Let Grace sleep. Let the story end.